All righty, we're excited to have with us today Ryan Hunter, running for City Council in American Fork. We're doing the questions from the American Fork citizen readers, 15 questions in 15 minutes. So, Ryan, we appreciate you jumping on board here and being willing to do this with us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
All righty, and I know we're a little bit out of our typical element and format just because we had to reschedule a couple times because of myself. So, I appreciate you being accommodating and being able to work with us. So, if you're
Happy to
ready,
do it.
what we'll do is just kind of inform the reader if you talked about this ahead of time. We don't have the timer that works, so I'll just kind of give you some hand signals as we go through things, and that way you can make sure that we're getting everything done the right way. Any questions you have before we get started here, Ryan?
Nope. Nope.
All
Happy
righty.
to maybe. Yep. We'll go.
All righty. So the first question we have is how important is it to stick to the general plan of the city, and how frequent should it be followed or changed?
Oh, what a great question. I think the general thought is that obviously there's a reason that we have a general plan, a master plan, sometimes called, and obviously it is a living document. There's no question about that. But we definitely should be referencing that. One of the thoughts that came up very recently was, and it's been a concern, I guess, across the 4 or 5 years that I've been involved with the council, but the idea is that we would like to maintain the density items. This question typically comes up with density, and so I would just say that we would try to keep it within the general plan and master plan where appropriate, because we're able to build to that infrastructure wise, as well as the intentions and the expectations of our residents as well. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Next question we have down is in 2024, the residential survey put out by the city, 61% it mentioned issues with high density. Would you support adding more high density housing in American Fork, and why or why not?
Perfect. Great question. It's just more of a continuation of that same comment. I am in favor of keeping the densities where we have it in the general plan. We've tried to do designation or design the city in a way that allows us to utilize mass transit or have access to public infrastructure that does allow for those high densities. I am not in favor of increasing densities anywhere in the city that aren't already master planned for that. There's a lot of reasons for that, but as you're well aware, you actually wrote an article about this, but not too long ago, I actually was the one lone dissenting vote about changing a density request. I've been pretty consistent with that, including just about a week and a half ago, meeting with another developer who was requesting significant density increase to the tune of basically double. And so I'm not in favor of it unless it's already existing in the general plan.
Okay. Next question we have is areas south and west of the freeway have seen a lot of growth with higher density, particularly in the TOD area. Road infrastructure has not kept up with the growth. Not only does this present a frustration to commuters, but also a major public safety concern. If elected, what plans do you have to get immediate solutions for the residents in this growing area?
Perfect. Great question. It's a big part of the reason that I chose to run again, maybe the largest reason. Um, 200 South, as everyone is aware, it needs significant improvements. One thing I'm not a fan of is diving into that reconstruction that needs to happen without having other ulterior egress ways in and out of the TOD area. The first thing would be the extension of the Lakeshore Drive, which needs to happen. It would create another access point in and out of the TOD area and extend over from the roundabout there on the south lakeshore side over to 1500 South. That'd be the first thing that I think we need to tackle. The second thing that we need to tackle is a frontage road between basically paralleling the on-ramp southbound of I-15 and the train tracks, so that we have a new egress that goes in and would tie into 200 South, and then we could tackle 200 South with new egress.
Okay, great. The next question is, what three things do you believe the city can do in the budget to be more efficient with taxpayer dollars?
Oh, oh man, this is the trick, right? There's always a desire. We always start with a zero balance, zero basis what do they call it? I've drawn a blank on the number on the word, but essentially we start at zero every year and then we build from that. Each department, it's not as if we just say because we had it last year, then we're going to stay with that thing. And so I actually really like that approach. One thing that's always a concern is that once we push something down the road, it becomes a snowball effect, right? And so I don't know that I have necessarily three things that are, let's go fix them. What I'm in favor of is not continuing to subsidize in areas that we don't need to.
Okay. Next question we have is the city's increased the communication budget over the last 10 years. What has the city done and what more can it do to help residents feel more informed about the finances in the city?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually chair the audit committee for the city. It's one of my council assignments, and I'm super proud of what we've been able to do. The communication about that is challenging because what generally happens is that we don't have as much interest in people pursuing what that really means. As you're well aware, Rob, with your time on the council, there's a significant amount of misunderstanding, perhaps, in what truth in taxation really means. And I believe that there are opportunities. I had a conversation today, in fact, about the idea of should we be having that every year? Should we be having it every 2 years? Even just for the sake of understanding that process, not being scared of it. I think it becomes politicized. And so as it relates to the communication of that, I think Yopify, we just signed a contract for that. That will be significant and it'll help us not only, with our bills on a monthly basis, but being just communicating a lot more, continuing to grow in that communication level.
Okay, great. Next question. Do you support live streaming work sessions and creating a more robust council work session packet of information? Why or why not?
It's a good question for sure. We're live streaming, and I think it's probably just maybe more of a, I forget what's the word, but anyway, just because we're not doing our work sessions in the same location, so we're not necessarily set up for the videography that is typically done on our regular council agendas. It's definitely something that we could, I would have no problem pursuing or looking into. Obviously, that communication is super valuable. We recently had an item come up to us about a project, and we were the benefactors because we were going back and actually rewatching the videos from 2019, 2020, where we were able to actually go back and listen to the intonations and the different conversations that were had. Sometimes even the way somebody expresses themselves is important, as you can see from the purpose of this videography for this interview.
Okay, great. And in Utah, the state legislature has set up property taxes. They don't automatically go up with an increase in property values. This is known as truth in taxation and does not allow the property taxes to keep up with inflation. If elected, what policies would you support to help the city keep up with inflation?
Yeah, it's one of the things I actually, 5 years ago, I didn't know. Heidi Rodeback was the one that actually brought this to my attention. Very, very well respected, obviously, former councilwoman here in American Fork, and I totally appreciate her insight and her wisdom. And as we've talked, that's one of the things that I actually believe. I mentioned it earlier, but I do believe truth in taxation is sort of run from in a political aspect because it can be politicized. And when people are running regularly, it can be used as a tool against them. Oh, they're raising taxes. Well, in other scenarios, it might be the prudent thing to do. One of the things we got feedback for last year when we did raise taxes for the first time since 2008 was when people were saying, hey, I wish you would have done this more regularly rather than hit me with this huge jump all at once. That's one of the examples where I would encourage the consideration of that, pegging the rate, so to speak.
Okay. Next question is, since 2019, American Fork City has spent a lot of time and money on possible city-owned fiber internet. Since that time, Lehigh, Pleasant Grove, and Cedar Hills have all started construction on their fiber programs. Do you support a city-owned fiber? Why or why not?
I do. My position on this has changed. It was something I really feel like is critical. This is not fiber as a general rule is no longer just a desire. Or it's not like having satellite TV. It's not something that we necessarily can go without in today's society. My 5-year-old kindergartner has daily internet required homework. Without that, he's not able to keep up with his class. And if we're starting that at fifth grade or 5 years old, excuse me, as a kindergartner, how far behind would he be or they be, or anybody in our boundaries? In addition, obviously, we all know how, I mean, we're using it right now. Who'd have thought 5 years ago, if that's the only thing we didn't learn from COVID or did learn from COVID was that, our world is way more connected and fiber needs to be a part of it. I'd love to add on to that at some point, whether we need to stay within that section, but I do have some changed position on how we should own part of that infrastructure.
Okay. Next question is, if elected, you've been granted authority by the voters to enact or repeal ordinances that directly affect the residents and their ability to enjoy life, from how they can use their land to how many pets they can own or permits or licensing requirements. If elected, would you look to repeal or create more restrictions on how residents can function, and what are your guiding principles on this?
Yeah, short and sweet. Generally speaking, the intent would be, we all have rights. We should be given those rights. They're it's not something that we're given by the city or the representatives in the city. So generally speaking, I'm just very much in favor of property rights or landowner rights or residents' rights as a general rule. When we get into a community, though, we do have to take into consideration that some of the things that we can do on our own land or in our own families can have impacts on our neighbors. As by and large, the city does not take it upon itself to start things like the most recent one being pets and the number of pets that people can own, right? That came up because there are concerns and there are issues that we're not able to address because there's some of the quote unquote teeth aren't in the code that allow us to do that. And so that is not intending to force anybody in one way or the other. It's generally in a reaction to something that needs to be taken a look at.
Yeah. Next question is, the fitness center is a significant um, need of a rebuild. In a 2024 survey, residents identified this as the number one project from options the city gave as possible projects. Do you support rebuilding the fitness center? Why or why not? And if not, what should happen to this current facility?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it, but not yet. I believe it's a desire, not a need. There's a wants and needs list, and there are too many needs in my mind that are ahead of it. 3 or 4 in particular: roads, infrastructure, fiber being one of those we've talked about. I see the fitness center probably in my 5 or 7 range on the list. I've got a list of 12 items that are here in front of me, but I do see it as a thing. What I'm not in favor of is having 45% of our people that are patrons at the fitness center being not from our city. I'm not a fan of going and bonding for a new fitness center, only to have our neighboring cities send 4.5 out of 10 people, and the residents of American Fork foot that bill. Yes, it needs improvements. I think there could be significant improvements if it was our own residents that were utilizing the space. We'd probably find that we don't need as big of an improvement as we may think currently.
Yeah. Next question is, during election years, it seems there is a bigger emphasis on connecting with and staying in touch with voters. If elected, what specific things will you do, not just to inform, but also listen to and respond to the concerns of residents to where they feel heard?
It's a great question. It's probably it's the real. That's why we're elected, right? Being a representative, we're representative form of government. We have that ability. We have that responsibility to do that. I've always listed. I was actually encouraged not to put it on my business card, put it in my emails, put it on the Facebook page, whatever. My cell phone is out there. I posted in All About American Fork and other places where people have questions. It's been unfortunate how few people will actually respond there. I think there's a desire in a lot of situations where people want to just voice their position, not necessarily have a response to their position. And so I am all ears. I feel like it's my responsibility. I hear people not complain, but apologize for coming out and asking me questions. I 100% want to hear from people, and I expect them to call out and reach to me. It's probably the only thing I like about running again is being able to talk to so many individuals. It's a huge benefit.
Okay. Next question is roads are a major concern in American Fork. In the past, the city has given a dollar amount spent on roads as a way to measure success in addressing the situation. What policies do you support to improve road conditions, and how will its success be measured beyond just an increase in money spent?
Great question. I think obviously that's a huge part of what I'm talking about. Roads is so critical. And to your point, we've talked about it. $12.3 million last year in roads improvement. 4.8 million of that was in maintenance. I think there's a big difference between maintenance and new roads or reconstruction, right? We're trying to do both. We need to continue to increase that. That's one of the reasons why I mentioned earlier that I'm not in favor of continuing to subsidize things like, for example, $750,000 every year in the rec center. You take half of that, that's a significant improvement. That's 10% increase to our maintenance budget. Roads on the lake side of town are absolutely important. We're working on that. The new frontage road connection to Automall Drive is a huge improvement. Boat Harbor Road on First West is a significant improvement. We're trying to get those in place so then we can tackle 200 South. Again, I've mentioned earlier a couple of roads that I think have to happen before we tackle 200 South.
Okay. And the other question we have here are what are three specific things you consider your biggest accomplishments over the last 4 years of service?
Oh man, so much of that it's I don't really feel like they're my accomplishments. First of all, it's short-sighted to consider that as my accomplishment or frankly any one council members. What I will tell you is that our council works really well together. We don't always go lockstep. I'm probably the one that has a tendency to be a little different perhaps, and I think that's good. I think that's value. But once we have committed to something as a council, now we're all on board. The council is moving in a direction. I think that's really valuable. Some of the things, and I've got a list of them here, but completion of the water line from AF Canyon all the way to the lake. We couldn't do the improvements down there until those things were in. Completion of Station 5-2 in the northeast corner of town. We're ready now to start Station 5-3 design and construction that will be on that new 30-acre parcel that's a regional area that we've just put some money into. Answering so many things. I've got a list. There's 11 of them right here. Downtown economic development. I'm recently been added to that, and I'm super excited with some of the people businesses we've been able to meet with for that.
All right. Next question is, do you support local law enforcement being involved in assisting immigration enforcement or ICE?
Yeah, this one came up actually in the chamber in their deal, and I believe in the rule of law first and foremost. I do believe in that. What I also believe in is the rule of loving thy neighbor. Right? I think that's in the fabric of who we are as a community. Ultimately, that's not in the hands of our purview as city council members. The construction, sorry, my phone's going off. The constructive or the enforcement of that is not something that I believe or want our taxpayer dollars funding with our police department. And so, and it's come up, and we've confirmed that that is not what we're trying to do, and our police officers are not as part of that. But definitely, yes, I believe in the rule of law, but we need to love our neighbors as we go through any kind of a process. But it certainly isn't American Fork PD's problem to chase.
Okay. Second to last question is, in a world where hate seems to become more and more common, what are specific solutions you believe will help keep residents safe and more community focused?
And sorry, my phone, it cut out there. Will you please restate that?
Yeah, you bet. In a world where hate seems to become more and more common, what are specific solutions you believe will help keep residents safe and more community focused?
Wonderful. No, sorry, it cut out on hate, and so I couldn't hear what you'd said. But like I said just a minute ago, the loving our neighbor is a huge part of who American Fork is. The reason we all live here in American Fork is purely for the purpose of because of the community feel that we have. Yes, the city's growing at a breakneck speed. The entire Wasatch Front is doing that. There's not a community along the Wasatch Front that's not feeling that. But what we have in American Fork is the feeling of being tied to one another, that we have each other's backs, that we are, it's more than just, hey, this happens to be the closest thing to the freeway, therefore I'm going to live here, right? I mean, things like the downtown thing, the Bethlehem, the Christmas in Robinson Park, the Steel Days, which I've been able to chair and been a part of for so much. Volunteering is at the core of our community standards, and that's what creates relationships that will take us through perhaps these political discourse.
Okay. And the last question comes down to 1 minute for you to say anything you'd like to the voters.
Oh,
Last question here.
wow, there we go. I'm trying to remember back on one of the questions that I said I'd like to talk more about, and I forget what it was. But all I can tell you is that the intent behind running again, there's basically three key things, and it's the roads, it's the improvement of and the continuation. That was fiber. It's the continuation of the fiber project. I believe very strongly. My opinion on that has changed in that I used to believe that we could fund it and own it 100% as the residents of American Fork. The construction costs alone have skyrocketed to the point where I don't believe that's the case. But I am in favor of us having a significant ownership share that we've already committed up to this point, somewhere in the neighborhood of $9 million. And therefore, having 25-ish%, I don't know what the final number is going to be, but that way we still have the ability to have multiple ISPs on our city-owned, at least with a significant ownership percentage as residents. We get to say what will be. Obviously hard to give a full answer in 1 minute, but man, I'm here just as a service opportunity. I want to do more, and there's a few things that I'm super excited about. We're on the cusp of.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, I sure appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking time. Never easy to do 15 questions in 1 minute, not knowing them ahead of time. So greatly appreciate it. And thank you for putting your hat in the ring. And we wish you good success here in the upcoming election.
Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate it. And anybody check out Vote Ryan, voteryanhunter.com. And call me, my cell phone number. I'll give it to you right here, 801-234-9532. Call me if you have a question. I'd love to talk to you.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan.